Hello there and welcome to the video. So today we are talking about this, the Ondu Eikan large format camera. Ondu, famous for the pinhole cameras, which are among the best and certainly most beautiful pinhole cameras out there. And then last year, Elvis, the man behind the brand, announced that he was about to start making large format cameras via a Kickstarter campaign. And I was intrigued. Even though I didn't back the campaign, I did end up pre-ordering one camera. And then there were some delays, and well, Elvis did release a few videos during that time, and there was a series of setbacks and a string of bad luck for him and his team that wasn't really within his control, and I really felt for him. So I waited, and I waited, and finally the camera arrived, my splanking new 4x10 Ondu Eikan. And I've had the camera for a few months now, and I thought it was high time that I share my thoughts about the camera. It's worth noting that even though I have the 4x10 version of the camera, it shares the same general construction with the 4x5s. And yes, there's more than one. In total there's currently 3 versions of the Eikan. There's the standard, the range, and the 4x10 Panoramikku that I have. And to my knowledge, the only difference is the bellow draws. The standard supports up to 320mm, while the range and the Panoramikku supports 420mm. And that is thanks to a rear extension that is available to you on the range and the Panoramikku for an extra 10 centimeters. I haven't used that myself out on location, but I can see it come in handy for like macro work or if you need to mount a long lens, obviously. And it looks very straightforward. There's 2 knobs on the underside that you undo to be able to pull back the back for an extra 10 centimeters. At its max extension it does get a bit wobbly, because well, momentum is a thing and it's just a flat rail that holds it in place. But I don't think it's too bad and I wouldn't hesitate on using it myself. And I must say, in general I'm very impressed about how sturdy this camera is, considering it is a lightweight field camera. This is also the camera's biggest strength. It folds down very compact, it's easy and fast to set up, and it weighs very little. And yet it feels this sturdy on the tripod. I do actually believe that the tripod head is the weakest link in my setup here. The other big selling point for this camera is just how it looks. To me this is a very beautiful camera. Nice woodwork, nice black anodized aluminum, and a few red accents that I think works really well. And it all feels great. It might sound a bit superficial, but to me this matters, because having a nice camera that looks and feels good just what makes me want to use it a bit more. But how is it to actually use then? Well, first off, setting up the camera is very fast and easy. You just fold up the back, there are a few catches to find the 0 position. Then you extend the focusing a tad, just to give a bit of clearance to the front stander when you fold that up. And once again there's a few catches to find the 0 position. Very nice and simple process. I only have 2 minor complaints. The first is that you have to extend the focusing a tad. If you don't, the front stander catches the bellow very slightly, which is a bit annoying. But you do get used to it very fast, so it is a non-issue. And the second is those catches. They are great and work really well. It's a clever piece of design, but they have slightly scratched the aluminum for me. Once you've set up the camera, it's also a joy to use because it gets the basics right. Good ground glass, nice focusing system, and an easy system to insert the film holders. The ground glass is the best I've seen. Bright, sharp, and a nice edged grid to it. It also includes a Fresnel that I do think is glued to the ground glass, but don't quote me on that. There's also a nice protective sheet of metal that is holding place with magnets for protecting the ground glass during transport. And then to insert the film holders, there's a nice bailback system which operates by 2 levers. And then you can insert the film holders, reset those levers, and it's held in place by some nice springs made out of carbon fiber. A nice, simple piece of design. I haven't tried the 4x5 versions, but Ondu very kindly sent me this, a reducing back for my 4x10 camera. I do believe this is a late prototype and it hasn't been released yet, but it's beautiful and works really well. At least I think. I haven't actually tried it out on locations. Anyhow, I'm happy to report the same great ground glass, nice bailback system on this, slightly different design though, and again a nice piece of metal to protect the ground glass during transport, as well as support for graph-lock system and the possibility to rotate the back between landscape and portrait orientation. Looks really great, looking forward to trying this out in the field in the future. So that reducing back, nice little piece of kit there. But there was one thing that intrigued me even more during the Kickstarter, and that is mentioned on the webpage. And that is that there is supposed to be a conversion kit for the 4x5 range to convert it into a 4x10 and vice versa. So you kind of just replace the back end of the camera and keep the front end. But there hasn't been any more mention about that or any release date. So I did ask Elvis from Ondu about it, and he is still working on it, but they couldn't say much more than that. And I do hope it gets released soon, because I do think it's a nice way to having two cameras in one, and as an upgrade path for the 4x5. But I do actually have a minor complaint about the design and preparation for that conversion, and that is that the bellows are held in place with magnets at the front standard. That's fine, it's strong, nice magnets. In general, Ondu seems to be quite keen on magnets. Anyhow, what can happen is if you put some pressure on the front there, the bellows might slip. It's very easy to reset it, but I would have preferred it being a small little lip to help keeping it in place. But honestly, it hasn't happened in practice, only in theory when I actually try and force it. Moving on, focusing on this camera, is done from the back, quite a popular position for the new crop of large format cameras being released today, and I do prefer that position over having it at the front. And on this one camera, it's excellent, it runs smoothly, has just the right amount of resistance, a very nice tactile feel to the knobs in general on this camera. Simple, but excellent, and more importantly, it stays put even if you have the camera on an angle. Another important aspect of any good field cameras, or large format camera in general, is movements, what's available to you and how they work. And on this camera, it's decent to good. On the back, you are limited to rear tilt, but honestly, that's all I've ever needed. And it works really well on this camera. Just release the two knobs on the side and retract the zero catches, and you can tilt the back. There's about a 20-degree tilt, and it tilts from the bottom. And then on the front, you are fully kitted with rise and fall, tilt, shift and swing. But here lies my biggest worry when I got the camera. I use quite a lot of rise and fall and front tilt. They are the movements I use the most. But they are controlled with the same two knobs. So when you release those knobs, you release both the tilt and the rise and fall. And that was a big worry for me. But it turned out, in practice, it works better than I expected. What I do is I release the two knobs, I retract the zero catches, I add the rise and fall that I need if I need it, and then I tighten it off, but I leave just a bit of slack there, so it stays in place, but I can add a bit of tilt. And this works really well actually. I do actually prefer it over how it works on my Lenoff. And to move on the bottom you do have shift and swing available to you, but once again you have two knobs that control multiple functions, in this case shift and swing, as well as the position of the front standard on the baseboard for different lenses. And once again it works better than I first anticipated. In practice I don't mind that construction at all, you can feel how it moves and it's easy to use, so I do think it's quite nice. The only little thing that I've encountered when actually using a camera is that when you only want to add shift, I have to double check so I'm still leveled against the film plane. And there are some lines to help you do that, but that's my only complaint. There's a few nice add-ons I would like to see. One is a pivot point for the swing, as well as a marking in the middle for resetting the shift. Currently there's just indentations on the sides that you can kind of feel and zeroing out that way. But those are just upgrades that I would like to see. It's also worth noting there's no zero snap on the base here. Instead you are supposed to line it up visually. And I do actually prefer that, because those zero snaps is quite annoying when you get close to zero position and it snaps back to zero. I find that annoying and prefer doing it visually. So there's your movements. I might have sounded a bit critical of them, but I want to emphasize they work really well in practice. And I do appreciate that they aren't over-engineered. This is, after all, on field cameras. And they look very repairable out in the field if anything goes wrong. And I do think that covers it. To summarize, I am pleased with the camera. It's lightweight, sturdy, well made, pleasant to use. It has a few compromises, as all cameras do, but I can live with them. Is this the camera to buy then? Maybe. If you're looking for a 4x5 camera, I do think this is an excellent option. But there are some fierce competition when it comes to newly produced 4x5 cameras. You have of course the low-cost offerings from Intrepid, as well as the 3D printed Ghibellini Proxima. Both offers a lot of functionality and is price-wise a lot cheaper than the Ondu. But I do think the Ondu is vastly nicer than those cameras, with better materials, all sourced from Europe, except a few screws. And all in all, a more refined product. Instead, its main competitor, I think, is either the Italian-made Stenopeiken Courante 4x5 or the Chinese Chamonix C45 H1. Both look like excellent options and have the addition of swing on the back standard if that's important to you. Otherwise, they are very similar to the Ondu range when it comes to weight, functionality, and price, with the Chamonix being slightly more expensive than the Stenopeiken and the Ondu. If you're looking for a 4x10 camera, well, you are a bit more limited with your options. It is quite an odd format. To my knowledge, there's only 2 cameras available, and once again made by Stenopeiken and Chamonix. You have the Stenopeiken Air Force 4x10, which is a bit cheaper. It also offers backswing, but doesn't include a Fresnel lens, and it weighs a bit more, about 50% more than the Ondu. And I do actually think the Ondu is a bit more beautiful. And then you have the Chamonix 410 N3, and once again that adds that backswing, and it weighs about the same as the Ondu, and I do think it looks as good as the Ondu. But it is a bit more expensive. It's not actually available in the EU from Yobo, which are the official reseller. But according to the official site, it is listed for $2,990. And if I compare some prices from other Chamonix cameras and how much they cost for me here in Europe, the price would be around 3,500 to 4,000 euros, including the VAT and the customs. And that is quite an expensive camera. By the way, if you're looking to get into 4x10, there are some other costs to factor in, the main one being film holders. They ain't cheap and they are rare. I still haven't found one used, so I had to buy new. I bought one from Chamonix and that cost me 270 euros. Also bought a no-name from a Chinese seller on eBay. That cost me 150 euros. The Chamonix vastly better and nicer, but the Chinese one worked as well. And then there's an offering from Stenopeiken that was out of stock when I ordered, and that cost around 200 euros. And Ondu is also working on a film holder themselves, price unknown. But they cost a bit of money, and as I said, they are rare on the used market. Besides the film holders, you also need somewhere to develop the film. If you have a darkroom, you can do tray developing, but I wanted a developing tank. So I went ahead and ordered the Stearman SP810, and that cost me 180 euros. So in total, besides the camera itself, I paid 600 euros to get started with 4x10. That's more than an Intrepid 4x5 costs. With that said, thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Just one more thing. It's a few days later and I reached out to Ondu about my feedback and I got some answers. And instead of just sticking a card in the video, I thought I'd record a little piece here at the end. And I'm just going to read to you what Elvis from Ondu wrote to me. And he says, I will have separate movements for the front standard available soon, as an option, since some people have asked me for that. As for the magnets on the front, I agree, the lip needs to be bigger. And I've already made plans for the next batch to have this changed. Also, the availability after conversion will be available in the next few months. But to be honest, there isn't many people asking for it. That's why I haven't put much time into standalone developing of this feature. It seems more people are interested in standalone camera. Also, for the ground glass Fresnel, they aren't glued together, just spring pressure is holding them together. So there's some good news for you, there's some updates coming, and it kind of makes sense about the ground glass Fresnel as well as the conversion kit. I can see that people might prefer a standalone camera. I still think it's a really cool idea and I want to see it in practice, so I hope it will be released. And by the way, when I sat down to edit this video, I realized I might come across a bit of an Ondu fanboy. And I might be. You see, I do have 3 large format cameras. I have the Sabad 4x5, I have the Lenovo Technica 5, and then I have the Ondu Eikan 4x10. And when I'm about to go out and do some landscape photography, I'm reaching for this. It has become my default camera for landscape photography. And that's saying something. I'm still using the Lenovo every now and again because it's a bit more compact than the 4x10. It just comes with the nature of 4x10. It's still quite a big camera in the bag, even though it's really lightweight and compact for what it is. And I do feel it's also important to point out that your needs might differ from mine. For instance, you might like a camera with more precise control of the movements. Well, then this is not the camera for you. It's a decent on the movement, it's excellent for landscape photography, it's all I need. But you might do quite a lot of architectural photography and needs those really precise controls. Well, a monorail might be more suited for you. You might be very big on like wide angle lenses. This isn't bad. The 4x10, well, you're pretty much just limited to what you can find that will cover 4x10. But on 4x5, I did ask Elvis about the wide angle, and he had some reports of people using 75mm as the widest without having to drop the bed. If you go wider than that, you might need to drop the bed, and then it's a bigger faff. So if you're doing that a lot, there are better cameras for that. I know Shenhao has quite a nice camera for wide angle photography. So your needs might differ, but if you're looking for like a field camera for perhaps landscape photography, this is an excellent option. And now I've rambled enough. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care and bye.